Guess who recorded a 20-minute video and didn't have the mic on? Okay, guys. So this video today is just about how not to be a piece of shit from a former piece of shit. So in my life, I've hurt 3 people. And these were the 3 people I've been closest with, or some of the 3 people I've been closest with. And I've hurt them. I hurt them dearly. 2 of them, I don't think I'll ever speak to again. 1 of them I am so thankful for, and I thank God every day. I was able to rekindle what we had, and we were able to be friends again. You know, I will always thank him for reaching out to me, and you know who you are. You know, I appreciate you, love you, bro, and you know, I really do respect and love and honor the fact that you gave me a second chance. So I'm never gonna, never gonna go back on that. So with that out the way, you want to accept responsibility and change. So accept that you were a piece of shit. You know, if I hadn't accepted that I was a piece of shit, I wouldn't be able to be open to having my friend come back and we can like rekindle things, you know, because I would have been stuck on the piece of shit mindset. I would have been stuck in that realm. So you want to take responsibility for your actions. You don't want to blame anybody. You don't want to be like, oh, this person should have gave me another chance, or oh, this person should have done. No, you don't want to put anything outside of yourself. You want everything to be in your hands, and you want to accept responsibility for everything. Because again, as a former piece of shit, we operate from our egos. So when you operate from your ego, everything is going to benefit you, and you're going to externalize it to other people. That's putting responsibility on the outside. What you want to do is you want to actually internalize everything so you can better explain your behavior. Because if you don't internalize it, you'll never be able to explain it itself. So yeah, accept that about you, and make room for change. You know, accept that you were a piece of shit, but then also understand that you were something. This won't define you for your entire life. When I wasn't accepting of change and I was fully in the I'm a piece of shit because I've hurt people, I wasn't actually able to change, and I wasn't actually able to, hold room in my heart for other people. So basically, it basically looked like 2 years of just me being a complete loner, complete disgusting, like just can't, like no regard for anybody, just like stuck, I was stuck. And a lot of that comes from just not having room to change. If you put some room in your brain where you're like, okay, I may have done some things, but I'm not defined by that, and I can actually move forward and become a better person and move on from that and not be affected by that, then you actually are able to move forward. But it's just about the mindset. You have to actually internalize the mindset. Number 3, you want to set reminders and goals. So the same quote of you show me the 5 people you hang around the most and I'll tell you who you are. That same thing applies. So if you've been a former creature of ego who has hurt people, chances are your friends have also been like that. They say birds of a feather flock together, or birds of the same feather flock together. It's the same logic. So if you've been a piece of shit, oftentimes you've had piece of shit friends who will egg you on in a certain direction. Or so this may look like, there's the age old, like there's the archetype of the one single girl, or no, the one girl in a relationship in a friend group of singles, and they're all like, oh, you break up with your man, and all the slightest thing that she tells them, they're like, oh, break up with him and everything. It's the same thing. So basically what I'm saying is you want to keep an eye on what you consume, keep an eye on your circle, keep an eye on everything, because if those take you back into the piece of shit realm, then you can't truly heal, because you'll always be stuck in the piece of shit realm. You'll have constant reminders and tethers bringing you back to that realm. You know what I'm saying? So understand what you consume is now even more important than before, especially as a creature of ego. So oftentimes I was a piece of shit, but I really did seek to be a good person. I wanted to be a good person, but I had this half state in mind where like I can get away with these things, but I want to be this, but like I could get away with it. No, you don't want to exist in a half state at all. Half states aren't good for the human psyche. I understand why, like, Freemasons, sorry to bring that up, but I understand why Freemasons say everything is black and white and they don't give time for gray area. Gray area is great for explanations and great for, you know, nuances and conversation and topics. But oftentimes what you see is things really are black and white. Things don't really exist in these half states. You can only really use the gray area to explain things, but you can't really use them as the answer in and of themselves. Not all the times, at least. So why did I say all that? Basically, if you think you are a good partner or a good friend, it is not enough to think you are that. You have to actually go out and do some things. And I'm not saying you gotta make it your purpose to like constantly be proving to your friends and girlfriends that all this different thing. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you have to actually remind yourself of what you are and do things that are in accordance with that nature. So let's say you're a former creature of ego. You may have been fine with just, you know, you may have just been fine with like, you know, chit-chatting with your friend and, you know, having fun, hanging out, you know, drinking, doing all these things and whatever. But every once in a while, give them a gift. Every once in a while, be like, yo, I appreciate you. Every once in a while, just, you know, take yourself out of the egoic, selfish mindset and actually be able to be what you truly want to be. Because ultimately, we don't really, like, a normal, healthy human being doesn't want to be an all-consuming piece of shit, you know? They want to actually be a community-based person who has all these connections to people, who is able to help people, who is able to do things for people, and who is a contributor of society. Most people in the healthy state want to be that. So be that, you know? Simply be that. Okay, so the last step is to remove guilt. Now, this is the most important step, and this is the one that oftentimes people get tripped up on. You have a full right to feel as a piece of shit, you know? You did some things, like me personally, for a long time I couldn't move on because I know I was a piece of shit and I did some things. But in true healing, you have to remove the guilt. You have to understand that you did what you did, but then also understand that you're also human. Every human has made a mistake. There is no human on this planet that hasn't made a mistake. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some understanding that you have made a mistake and that you can move forward. If you just exist within this realm of, oh, guilt and shame, blah, 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 you'll never be able to move on and you'll be unhealthy and you'll start bleeding on people that didn't cut you. So for 2 years, I was in the worst state possible. I was fucking bleeding on all my friends. I couldn't date. I couldn't do anything because I was just fully in this pain state. I was just in pain. I was just like, oh, I fucked up, all this and that. But that, again, you're still existing from your own egoic realm. You know? You start bleeding on people because you're still existing within the guilt realm, which is the ego realm. Once you start to remove the guilt, by understanding that you were only human, understanding why you made the decisions you made, understanding why other people made their own decisions, then you start to remove those barriers, you start to get closer to understanding, and then you can actually be healthy on yourself, and then you can actually move forward. So why this is so important is because you know, if you start bleeding on other people who didn't cut you, you just become even more toxic and even more liable to being cut off by more people. So like for the 2 years I was doing my thing, I basically was a shell of myself. I lost a friend and I lost my ex-girlfriend, so I was a complete shell of myself. Like I was in a depression and it was all my fault, so I couldn't blame anybody. But in that, I kept my other friends that I was hanging out with, I would be so low and depressive towards them, or I'd be like bringing stuff up. We'd have to keep having conversations about like some stuff. And basically I was just bleeding on these people when they didn't deserve it. So part of removing the guilt is also removing the ego, the me first mindset. When you realize that you have to remove the guilt, not just for you, but just so you don't bleed on other people, it actually puts you into a much more healed state. And you're basically allowed to heal in a way that you couldn't before. So a big part of healing as a person who has been a former piece of shit you gotta actually be able to put other people first. That's one of the biggest things. Putting other people first is like one of the biggest things that'll actually help you on your healing journey, and has helped me. Like me, I thought I was a good person, but I was still me first. I was always me first. Me. But as soon as I started empathizing with more people more and trying to understand them more and everything, then I was able to heal more, because you're removing yourself from the ego me first mindset. You're now actually getting into the community us first mindset. And that's the mindset that allows people to heal. You can never heal fully 100% when you're just in a me first mindset. You know? That's why even like it doesn't matter. You could have a family, you could have no friends, you could have nothing, but you could also have everything. If you're in a me first mindset, you're not gonna be someone that people want to be in contact with, nor will you be somebody that will be able to fully heal, because we are social creatures. So you could go the full Buddhist route of the non-identity, non-attachment, and then be fully healed like a meditative monk. Or you could go within the realm of perception that allows you to, that gives you the feedback loop of healing. So if you've healed, you know, I just realized that I just talked some nonsense, but I'll try to layman terms it. So if you've healed, but sometimes you don't feel like you fully healed, you need people around you to remind you, because part of your identity, and we don't want to admit this, you know, part of growing as a person is moving away from this. But part of being a person, part of your identity is your relation to others. So if others can get into the feedback loop of telling you, wow, you've actually changed, like you've been a good person recently, that will push your healing to another level. Like you will heal way more than you think you would on your own. That's why they always say, if you want to do something fast, do it yourself. If you want to do something long, go with people. It's the same thing. If you want to quickly delude yourself into, I'm a good person, then just don't talk to anybody and constantly give yourself affirmations and delusions of, oh, I'm a good person. But don't talk to anybody, because they can break the illusion. They can tell you, oh, you maybe, but you're a neutral person, or, oh, but you did this. But if you really want to heal, and then also get people to tell you that you've healed. And it's not in a, yo, bro, tell me that I've healed. Like, yo, every once in a while, just tell me this. Goddamn. It's not like that. It's more just being such an overwhelming force that you attract it by result, you know? Like, it's like the pretty person. A person who's very super pretty, they just get compliments by default because they're super pretty. Be such a good person that you get those compliments of, wow, you're a good person, you know? And even, okay, and then also removing from the validation mindset, if you're more cat-like, if you're not, if you're more, you know, just into yourself, if you're more cat-like, you know, you're not dog-like, you're not pack-like, you want to actually remind yourself, because this is where the actual battle comes, because when you're a fully independent being, then you're not really focused on the tethers, you're not focused on the relation to others, so you actually have to constantly remind yourself, you know? You have to remove that guilt and fill that guilt hole with reminders of, I am, you know, you have to affirm. You have to constantly affirm if you were cat-like, you know? What do I mean by cat-like? You know, just the independent type person who isn't really in the social hierarchy, sigma boy, you know, that type, you know, or sigma girl, you know, that type. If you're more dog-like, if you're, then you could definitely help. You could definitely get some help from other people. But if you're cat-like, you typically want to just affirm for yourself, you know. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video there. I just wanted to say that just because you have done piece of shit things in the past doesn't mean that you will always be a piece of shit. Don't look for closure, because that's operating for ego. If you are in it and you are actively talking to the person, then look for closure. But if you're like me and you have hurt people in the past, leave the past in the past. Keep those doors closed, because like, if I wanted to get closure, I'd be opening old wounds for other people, you know? So understand that you are now not a creature of ego. Your needs aren't 100% the most important thing. You have to put other people ahead of yourself as well. You know, you can't just be operating from your own ego. So yeah, don't seek closure, accept, look forward, make change, do your thing, be what you seek, embody everything that you didn't before, and truly live